When I was 22, I started renting the downstairs apartment in my parents' house. It helped me save money while also giving me a bit more privacy. Even though my parents were away quite often, it still felt like I never had true privacy. I couldn't even have friends or girls over without worrying about being interrupted. The downstairs unit was separated from the main house by a lockable door in the stairway. It had an open layout with a small kitchen connected to the living area. My bedroom, bathroom, and laundry room were down the hall, and there was a separate side entrance through the living room. One weekend, while my parents were away, I had my friends Anthony and Jay over. We were just hanging out, watching a hockey game, having some drinks, and blasting music since no one was home to complain. I wouldn't say I was completely drunk, but I definitely had a good buzz by the end of the night, when my parents weren't home. I usually kept the door between my unit and the upstairs unlocked, and I stored drinks in the upstairs fridge since it was larger and more convenient. Since both Anthony and Jay had driven and were drinking, they decided to crash at my place. The couch downstairs was big enough for all of us to sleep on comfortably. After the long night, I said goodnight and went to my bedroom. A few hours later, in the middle of the night or early morning, I woke up suddenly. What woke me were footsteps coming from upstairs. I assumed it was one of my friends grabbing water from the upstairs fridge, so I didn't think much of it and tried to fall back, asleep. But then, a couple of minutes later, I heard the doorknob to my bedroom jiggle. Someone tried opening it, but it was locked. Thankfully, I always lock my door out of habit. I wondered why either of them would be trying to get in, but I was too tired to care. I figured if I just stayed quiet and pretended to be asleep, they'd go away, and it worked. I eventually drifted off again. The next morning, Anthony was already gone, but Jay was still asleep on the couch. When he woke up, I asked if he had tried to come into my room last night. He said he didn't think so, but he didn't remember much since he got pretty drunk. We walked to a nearby deli to grab some bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches and coffee, then ate them in my backyard. Jay left not long after, and I continued on with my day. I didn't bother asking Anthony about the door situation. I just didn't think it was a big deal at the time. I spent most of Saturday out with other friends and got home late that night. I wasn't drunk, just exhausted. After a quick snack and shower, I got into bed and watched TV for about an hour. When I finally turned off the TV and settled in, I heard something again, faint taps and thumps coming from directly above me in the kitchen. They sounded like footsteps, just like the night before. I sat up, listening intently, but the sounds stopped. Still, a nervous feeling settled in my gut. I eventually convinced myself it was just the house settling and laid back down. I couldn't have been more wrong. Suddenly, I heard the doorknob to my bedroom rattle again. I jumped up, my heart pounding, as a light knock followed. I didn't make a sound. I grabbed my phone and started texting my parents, Anthony and Jay, hoping against all odds that it was one of them. But I knew deep down it wasn't. My parents didn't respond. They were supposed to be away until Monday. I wasn't about to call out and ask who it was. Instead, I quietly got out of bed, hid behind my dresser, and grabbed a heavy object just in case whoever it was tried to break in. I stayed frozen in that spot for about 10 minutes. No more knocks. Eventually, I whispered to 911, telling the dispatcher what was happening. I stayed on the line with them until the police arrived. I asked the dispatcher to have the officers meet me at my bedroom window, which they did. Luckily, I was on the first floor, so I handed them the key to the side door through the window. Within moments, I heard the door open. Only then did I feel safe enough to leave my room. 2 officers entered and we turned on all the lights. My apartment was small and quick to search. We then moved upstairs and continued checking the rest of the house. When we got to my parents' bedroom, I heard a sudden commotion. From the hallway, I saw two officers shouting at someone hiding under the bed. My stomach dropped. I was told to wait downstairs. A few minutes later, the officers came down, escorting a tall, dirty man,
a hoodie and shorts.
He looked homeless, or possibly insane. The look he gave me was chilling, full of hate. I told the officers I had no idea who he was. Once he was out of the house, I felt an enormous sense of relief. The officers said if my family wanted to press charges, we could contact the precinct. After they left, I immediately texted every family and friend group chat. Only a few people responded since it was so late. I called my parents first thing the next morning and told them everything. They were shocked, of course, but since the man appeared to be homeless and hadn't stolen anything, they chose not to pursue legal action. I suspect I may have left the door unlocked the night Anthony and Jay came over, and the man may have simply walked in while we were blasting music, but a more terrifying thought is that he may have already been inside. This happened when I was about 15 years old, back in 2008. My parents had gone out to the casino for the night, so it was just me and my dog Abby home alone. It was around 11 p.m. I was messaging friends on Instant Messenger and watching YouTube videos when I heard Abby start barking from the living room. I figured maybe my parents were back, so I waited. But after a minute of non-stop barking and no sound of the door opening, I got up to check. Abby was facing the windows that looked out onto our driveway, barking like crazy. The lights outside were off and it was pitch dark, so I couldn't see much. I pressed my face against the glass and saw that only one car was in the driveway. My parents hadn't come home yet. I figured Abby must have heard a neighbor's car door or maybe a loud engine passing by. We lived on a busy road, so noises late at night weren't unusual. I went back to chatting with my friends, but something didn't feel right. Over the next few minutes, I kept hearing strange sounds. Abby would stop and start barking again, each time facing a different direction, like she was tracking something. Then I heard it, what sounded like a soft knock or maybe rustling, coming from the living room door. I froze, then slowly walked back into the living room to check the windows again. Nothing. Still, I was getting nervous. I was too scared to look through the peephole, just in case someone or something was staring back at me. I double-checked the front door lock and was about to leave the room when I suddenly heard knocking again, this time from the side door
Of the house. My heart skipped. I didn't know what to think. Were my parents locked out? Was someone trying to break in?
Was there more than one person? Then came the sound of a doorknob jiggling downstairs. Someone was messing with the basement door. That entrance was hidden under the deck in our backyard. You had to walk around the entire house to even know it was there. Either someone knew our house well, or they were determined to get in. Abby was barking like mad, running from room to room. It felt like the whole house was surrounded. The noises downstairs got louder and then suddenly they stopped. My stomach dropped. The silence was deafening. Then, like a shot, Abby bolted down the basement stairs and started growling, deep and vicious, unlike anything I'd ever heard from her. She was a sweet black lab who'd never hurt a fly, but in that moment, she sounded like she'd tear someone apart. I stood there frozen. I don't know how long I waited, but when I realized Abby had stopped growling, my fight or flight kicked in. I called her upstairs and quickly locked the door leading to the basement. I didn't have a cell phone yet, so I grabbed the house phone and ran into my parents' room.
I hid in the closet with Abby and one of the guns we kept locked up. I was just about to call 911 when I heard the front door open. Abby sprinted out of the closet. I yelled after her, terrified. But then I heard familiar voices. My parents had
come home. I ran into the living room to find them petting Abby, looking confused. I told them everything. My mum was horrified. My dad grabbed his gun and searched the entire house inside and out. But we didn't find anything. I didn't sleep that night. The next afternoon, there was a knock at the front door. My heart jumped into my throat, and I instinctively ducked into another room. My dad answered it. It was my Uncle Pete. He was holding an envelope. Now, Uncle Pete, he was always a little off. Narcissistic, creepy, just gave everyone the heebie-jeebies. Nothing illegal, but definitely someone we all tried to avoid. Even as a kid, I hated being around him. He made everyone uncomfortable, even the adults. His daughter, my cousin Kate, played softball in a younger league than mine. I loved her and felt bad she had a dad like that, so I'd help her out with pitching and fielding lessons now and then. From the other room, my mom and I listened in on the conversation. We heard him say something like, "I tried to stop by last night to drop this off, but no one was home, I guess." I couldn't catch the rest, but a moment later, we heard the front door slam shut. My dad came into the room, face red with rage. He told us Uncle Pete had admitted to being the one creeping around the house the night before. He handed me the envelope. Inside was a card and a gift card thanking me for helping Kate with softball.
Night of fear and panic. All because of my creepy uncle. My dad threatened him on the spot, and after that we never really saw him again. Looking back, I'm just glad I found out who it was. Otherwise, I might have spent years wondering if
It was a burglar, or something worse. I'll always be grateful Abby was there. I truly believe she scared him off when he tried getting in through the basement. But I still have so many questions. What was he thinking? Why show up that late at night? Why not call the house? Why try every door when no one was answering? And worst of all, what would have happened if Abby hadn't been there?